Inside the Senate Judiciary Committee, what began as a standard oversight hearing quickly escalated into one of the most tense and arguably most crucial exchanges we've seen this year. This wasn't a partisan shouting match over abstract policy. This was Senator Cory Booker attempting to pry back the curtain on how the very machinery of federal law enforcement is being used. When a sitting U.S. Senator has to remind the Attorney General what justice even means, that's not oversight, that's crisis. Tonight, we expose how Senator Cory Booker confronted Attorney General Pam Bondi, detailing a disturbing pattern where the Department of Justice appears to have been twisted into a political weapon. And what you're about to see proves it. The spotlight was fixed squarely on Attorney General Pam Bondi, appearing before the committee to defend the Department of Justice's direction under intense scrutiny. The climate surrounding the DOJ at the time was toxic. Accusations of selective enforcement, political interference, and dramatic resource reallocations dominated the headlines. On the other side of the dais stood Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey. He wasn't just representing his state, a top 4 donor state in America. He was voicing the profound alarm felt by career prosecutors, conservative watchdogs, and communities across the nation. The core issue, the belief that the DOJ was shedding its primary responsibilities, like fighting organized crime, gun violence, and public corruption, to prioritize political agendas, particularly immigration enforcement. Booker entered the room armed with irrefutable facts and data. He brought receipts, citing evidence not just from Democratic frustration, but from the White House's own documents and even the conservative think tank, the Cato Institute, all warning about the same disturbing trends. This wasn't a slip-up. This was a fundamental shift in the application of justice, leading to what some are calling the weaponization of justice itself. Booker began with the pocketbook, pressing Bondi on decisions that hit his state directly. He confronted the Attorney General about $35 million worth of Office of Justice Program grants, resources approved in a bipartisan way, meant for things vital to public safety, like school violence diversion and community intervention programs. These funds were frozen or terminated. New Jersey, Booker pointed out, had seen none of those grants reinstated, leaving nonprofits and programs that depended on them in a lurch. Bondi, maintaining composure, offered the standard defense. She confirmed grants were terminated but noted an appeal process was active and some were being turned back on. She stated she would be happy to sit down with Booker or any member to review those appeals. Booker pushed back hard. But I will be the first one you sit down with, correct? Bondi promised to look at those tomorrow. But that was just the appetizer. The temperature in the room spiked when Booker moved to the case of Newark Mayor Raz Baraka. The mayor had been arrested after trying to conduct oversight at a detention center. The charges brought by federal prosecutors were deemed clearly baseless and politically motivated by many in New Jersey. The federal judge overseeing the case didn't just dismiss the charges. He admonished the prosecutors for even bringing it. The judge's words were damning, reminding federal prosecutors, "Your role is not to secure convictions at all costs, nor to satisfy public clamor, nor to advance political agendas." He went on to call the charges embarrassing and a worrisome misstep. Booker escalated the tension, introducing new, explosive evidence. A recently released video allegedly showed a federal agent telling fellow officers that the decision to arrest Mayor Baraka was directed per the Deputy Attorney General of the United States. This evidence shifted the accusation entirely. This wasn't a mistake in the field. This suggested a directive coming from D.C., from Main Justice, leading to the clear conclusion that the decision to arrest a major city's mayor was political. Bondi was cornered. She immediately invoked her legal experience, refusing to discuss the matter because it was ongoing. A perfect, but transparent, stonewall. Booker pivoted to the staggering systemic changes in the department. He painted a picture of a DOJ abandoning its core mission. He cited the Cato Institute, reporting that 7,460 law enforcement personnel were reassigned away from their primary duties. Imagine, agents meant to investigate drug trafficking, prosecute child pornography, and target high-value white-collar criminals were instead forced into low-level immigration enforcement. The scale is breathtaking. 1,778 agents from the ATF diverted. The White House's own documents showed they diverted 45% of all agents in 25 FBI field offices to work on immigration full-time. Booker stressed this was happening while 11,000 Americans had been killed by a firearm that year. He detailed the structural dismantling of units meant to serve communities, the elimination of the independent component of the DOJ combating transnational organized crime, the dissolution of the Community Relations Service, invaluable for responding to community conflict. Even grants, VOCA and VAWA, meant to support survivors of sexual assault and human trafficking, were rescinded. Bondi tried to mitigate the damage. She insisted the work of the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force, OCDETF, was continuing. Only the executive office was being dissolved. She assured Booker that resources were now going directly to law enforcement organizations and that no work will be sacrificed. She defended the agents, saying they are working tirelessly, even unpaid during a government shutdown, still getting child predators off the street and working on their core missions alongside task forces. But Booker delivered the hardest blow as his time ran out, hitting the nerve center of federal accountability, public corruption. Booker pointed out that the DOJ's public integrity section, once the engine of accountability, had gone from 36 full-time prosecutors down to 2. He listed the evidence of retreat. The DOJ stopped enforcing the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, disbanded the Foreign Influence Task Force, and cut back on white-collar investigations. Booker argued that Democrats and Republicans alike know there is a real problem with public corruption in our country. This is the ultimate signal of danger. When prosecutors are fired for following the law, and when the anti-corruption unit is stripped down to the bone, it doesn't just weaken oversight. It signals that loyalty has replaced law. Bondi's defense here was that the section had not been slashed, but rather the work was decentralized to the various U.S. attorney offices around the country, instead of keeping one unit based in D.C. Booker's final question, regarding bipartisan concerns over antitrust enforcement and a controversial $14 billion merger approval, was summarily deflected. Bondi refused to commit to appearing before the antitrust subcommittee, stating she would let another official, Gail Slater, handle all matters with antitrust. What we just witnessed was Senator Cory Booker pressing Attorney General Pam Bondi with precision, demanding answers about how the Department of Justice has been operating under this new political reality. This hearing exposed a pattern. When high-level officials are arrested on what a federal judge calls an embarrassing and worrisome misstep, directed from Washington, when thousands of federal agents are diverted from investigating organized crime and gun trafficking to focus on political priorities, and when the anti-corruption unit, the very safeguard against graft, is hollowed out, the system becomes a tool, not a protector. The DOJ tried to defend it, claiming core missions remain intact, and agents are still working tirelessly. But look closer. Every unit Booker mentioned, from anti-corruption to victim support, has been either slashed, merged, or sidelined. When you dismantle oversight and redistribute prosecutorial power, the entire justice system becomes vulnerable to political loyalists. This isn't just about Pam Bondi or even the Trump administration. It's about the future of impartial justice in America. When power goes unchecked, justice dies quietly, not with a bang, but with bureaucratic decisions that hollow out its very core. Outro. Narrator speaks over the channel logo/subscribe prompt. The next time you hear law and order thrown around like a slogan, ask yourself, whose law and whose order? If you found this breakdown insightful, don't just watch, subscribe to Seat of Questions.